Okay, thank you, BevCam. I'm still adding participants, and I do just want to clarify that BevCam is with us this evening. They are streaming this meeting on their YouTube channel. They also are broadcasting on channel 6, or if you have high definition, on channel 1073. You are welcome to stay here on the Zoom platform if you prefer, and if you think you might be signing up to speak. However, if you would prefer to stream this meeting and prevent any accidental additions to the meeting, you are welcome to drop from here and go over to the other platform. Let me see. I think we're waiting on a couple more school committee members. So I do want to thank BevCam for their flexibility. We haven't done one of these remote only meetings in a while. Appreciate the extra effort that has gone into um, getting us set up to be broadcasting and streaming on those channels in addition to this platform. I am asking that members of the public do display their real names on this screen just to help me with attendance. I see a couple iPhone XS. If people could put a real name to those, I would appreciate it. I'm also hit record just in case we have any interruptions with our broadcast and our streaming. I'm going to record it.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Oh, and we still have people joining us. Bear with me for one more moment. Okay. BevCam, just confirming you are broadcasting us. I am recording, and I want to welcome everyone to Beverly School Committee's Curriculum Instruction, Student Life, and Committee of the Whole joint meeting. I'm going to be chairing both meetings, and I'm calling them both to order concurrently. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. We are meeting in a remote meeting platform model. Using a remote meeting application, this allows for remote participation and for public access to the open portions of our meeting. As I mentioned to those who joined earlier, BevCam is streaming and broadcasting our meeting this evening, so I really thank BevCam and for the extra effort to recapture some of the equipment that we used during COVID meetings. Thank you so much for getting that re-established. And we thank everyone for their participation this evening. We know with the school closures and some of the icy conditions, it just made sense to meet here. I do want to say that on June 16th, 2021, the former governor signed chapters 20 of Acts of 2021, and on February 12th, and again on July 15th of 2022, he extended provisions to, among other things, allow public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely until March 30th, 2023. And now our current governor and legislature have extended further for 2 years until March 31st, 2025, these provisions. These acts specifically allow us to suspend the need for a quorum and chair to physically be present and asks our body to use technical methods to allow for safe public access. As a note, Beverly also has prior approval for remote meeting participation on its boards and commissions, although through that permission, the chair and quorum do physically need to be present when this act expires in 2025. Tonight is a joint meeting of the Curriculum Instruction and Student Life and the Committee of the Whole, as I mentioned. We did retain the option to have members of the public address as we do in our regular school committee meetings. We also have some regular school committee meeting business on our agenda today. If you were interested in speaking this evening, we do ask that you sign up using the email address residentvoice@beverlyschools.org. I think I'll also use the chat function in a little bit. Just like we would have a physical sign-up sheet at the podium, and you will need to state your name and address for the record, as well as limit remarks to 3 minutes, and to also remember that this is addressing the body. We are not replying or engaging in conversation. It is simply a 3-minute opportunity to share your thoughts, feelings, and expertise with the committee. Joining us today, we have members of the school committee. We also have various members of the district administration and leadership teams, and I will conduct a full roll call attendance in a moment. Because this meeting platform sometimes does not display all of the participants, and I also want to confirm that everyone can hear and see us this evening, especially those who will be participating in our agenda. Please do remember, however, that any audio or video that you supply on this platform will become part of the meeting records. So to please carefully use your mute functionality to prevent background noises. If you are speaking, would appreciate seeing you on the camera, but we also understand that's not always an option for everyone, whatever makes you comfortable. I think we have a majority of people joining in already, so I'm going to start my roll call to make sure that the participants that are attending this meeting are able to see and hear me tonight. I'll start with Mayor Cahill.
Hi, here.
Great. Kimberly Coelho.
Here.
Great. Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. I'm not sure she's with us this evening. Next, we have Ms. Karen Robinson.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Jeffrey Silva.
Here.
Ms. Lorinda Visnick.
Here.
And I'm Rachel Abel. We are also joined by our Superintendent, Dr. Sue Turacek.
Here.
Great. Do we have our Assistant Superintendent, Dorothy Flaherty, with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great. We can hear you and see you. Dr. Andre Morgan, our Director of Opportunity, Access, and Equity.
Here.
Great. Thank you so much. Our Director of Finance and Operations, Ms. Jean Sherburne. Not seeing or hearing her yet. Our Director of Info and Human Resources, Ms. Erin Brown. Not seeing her yet. I see our Director of Special Education and Pupil Personnel Services, Bethany Splansky.
Here.
Great, we hear and see you. And oh boy, okay. So we have a lot of additional people. Let me move this out of my screen. We have Kate Twombly, who's on our CISL Standing Committee
Here.
and assistant principal at the middle school. We have our high school principal, Mark Thomas.
Here.
We have our executive secretary, Donna Bergeron.
Here.
Thank you. Our curriculum lead at the high school, Dr. Jennifer Thomas. Okay, you are on mute, but I could see that you were trying. There we
Here.
go. Thank you. Our Director of Humanities, Mr. Paul Casey.
Here.
Great. Our middle school principal, Lisa Oliver.
Here.
Our student representative, Delia Gauker.
Here.
Perfect. Okay. And then we have some educators who are joining us, as well as some parents. We also have a few of our student representatives. I think the one that says Sadie's Otter Pilot, is that Sadie Brennan by any chance?
It's an AI
It's an AI tool, so we might
AI
remove
tool.
that one. We're going to remove that.
I think it said it was taking notes, Rachel.
Okay, we're going
It
to
said in the
remove.
chat.
Okay. We will not report that, but it happens every curriculum instruction meeting. I don't know. I'm also seeing a couple of people who have joined us that are showing up with the name iPhone. If you're able to, please put in a real name. We'll give you a moment to do that. And then Ms. Bergeron, if you're taking the records, I believe I've captured all of the names of the additional participants who are here.
Okay, Kristen Marisol. Here.
Yes. Great. Okay. Just by way of housekeeping, I did want to say that we are going to reorder our agenda just slightly today to be respectful of our educators' time. There is a presentation for an overnight field trip. Additionally, I think it will be very helpful for those joining to hear the superintendent's report in full before we do our open forum for resident voice. So on the agenda, item number 5 will shift after the item number 7, just a slight reordering, and I think that will allow for us to work really productively together here on this remote meeting platform. So now that we've called to order, we typically have a pledge of allegiance. I'm not super skilled in pulling up a digital flag anymore. I'm going to try. I am going to try to share my screen. We are still getting lots of participants joining us here. I'll just echo my former comments about the fact we do have BevCam. BevCam is streaming us this evening on their YouTube channel, and they are also broadcasting us on channel 6 and on high definition 1073. And you'd have got me to figure out how to get to a high def channel. Okay, adding people back in. May I ask, Dr. Silva, you're going to lead us in the pledge, and I'm issuing apologies that the flag is so small. Let's see if I can expand it. We'll follow your lead.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America,
and to the
and
republic
and the republic
for
which
which
it
it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
justice
and justice for
for
all.
all.
for all. Okay. We have even more people joining us. Okay. Thank you all. Our next typical agenda item is the recognition of student employees and community members. We are going to move those recognitions to our March meeting when we'll be in person, March 13th. I now would like to call on our student representative, Delia Gauker, to provide the committee with her student representative report.
Thank you. BHS has had a busy month and will have a busy month coming up. The Stage Right Drama Club will be competing in Drama Fest at Framingham High School with their production of Medea at the beginning of March. There are opportunities during advisory and after school for students and community members to see their performance. The music department has begun selling tickets for their spring musical Pippin, which will take place in mid-March. Winter sports season is wrapping up and many teams have recently competed in their NEC meets. Spring sports season will begin in mid-March. On Friday, there will be multiple career presentations for juniors based on career clusters they are interested in during advisory. Students in other grades have advisory period with Naviance guidance work or makeup time. And then finally, a group of students are attending the London trip for a week starting on Friday with the English and History department. Thank you.
Rachel, you're muted.
I'm never going to be that elegant again. Okay. I wanted to thank Ms. Gauker for her participation in our meeting. I apologize that her extracurricular were canceled this afternoon, but we're very much looking forward to the spring musical at BHS and hope that the show is outstanding, as I'm sure it will be. So thank you. Still adding some people to the meeting, and I would ask that people make sure that their real name is displayed. At a certain point, I will remove people who have not been identified, such as iPhone. I know it's a little tricky to figure out how to rename your device, especially from a phone. Thank you so much. Okay, our next agenda item is the approval of the meeting records from the January 10th, 2024 school committee meeting. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Motion.
Thank you, Dr. Silva. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Were there any edits or corrections that we needed to make to the meeting records as presented in the packet? I'm not seeing any school committee hands, so I will proceed with the roll call vote. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza, still absent. Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick,
Yes.
and Ms. Abel, yes. It was passed 601 for the absence. Okay. Our next agenda item will be the items by consensus on our agenda. Items A, B, C, D, and E list out the warrants and the various amounts. These are for the bills of the school department, ranging from our payroll to our vendor invoices. And I am looking for a motion to approve these items as a group collectively.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Bisnick and Mayor Cahill. Generally, we don't have questions, but I will pause to see if there are any. And I will now call the roll. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza still appears absent, and Dr. Silva.
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick,
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes. That passes 601 for the absence. Okay, now, without further ado, I would turn the meeting over to Dr. Chirocek for her report. She has 3 items this evening.
All right, thank you very much. I am just setting up. It's been a while since we've done the setting up on the remote. So thank you. I do have a few items on the superintendent's report. First item is a request for an overnight field trip from BHS DECA. And then we have our high school program of studies that's being presented for a vote this evening from the committee. And then we have an informational session for around math visioning for grades 7 through 12. So we'll go in that order. So the first item that I have is a request for an overnight field trip by the BHS DECA group going to the Copley Marriott. The recommended motion, the superintendent recommends approval of the proposed BHS overnight field trip to Copley Plaza Marriott. And I have Kristen Maraskelchi here, I think, to speak to her field trip.
Hi, so yeah, we're going on March 7th, 8th, and 9th. We'll be taking, well, originally it was 92, a few had to drop. So we have about 88 kids going, and we have 8 overnight chaperones. So just wanted to make sure everybody approved the field trip.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Chirocek, for providing the recommended motion. I'm going to ask school committee members if they have any questions. We can also entertain the motion.
You want me to make that motion, Madam President?
Sure, Mayor Cahill.
So I move approval of the BHS DECA overnight field trip to states, right? Ms. Maraskelchi at the Copley Marriott in
Yes,
Boston,
and then after states, we'll be heading to California. I don't know if I'll have to do this again, but if students do qualify, I know we have some leadership spots already that we earned through community service, but that's in April as well.
I will second that motion, Ms. Abel.
Thank you, Mayor Cahill and Ms. Bisnick. We have a motion and a second on the table to consider the overnight field trip for the DECA to their state finals at the Copley Marriott. What a fun place. Okay, are there questions? I'm looking for hands, or you can gesticulate in front of the camera. If you can't find that hand raising button, I've lost mine. I'm not seeing any questions. Are we ready to vote? Looks like we are. Mayor Cahill.
I just want to say there's an enthusiasm behind this. Yes, I think it might hold true for some of my colleagues. Thank you for all you do. This is Maraskelchi and your partners in the DECA program.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I don't see that Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza has joined us. She's still absent. I predict she'll be absent for the rest of the evening, but I'll keep an eye out. Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick?
Absolutely.
And Ms. Abel, yes. The motion has passed 6 to just the 1 absence, and we hope you have a wonderful, delightful trip, and good luck.
I have great kids, so I know I will. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Our next item up for the superintendent's report is a review of the BHS program of studies. I think that this is one of the main purposes that we combined the meetings tonight, knowing that it would have taken 2 trips going to CISL and then here. So now we have a joint meeting, so that's awesome. And so I think Mr. Thomas is here to present the program of studies for BHS.
Thanks, Dr. Trocheck, and thank you for having me tonight. Before I get going with this, I just wanted to acknowledge the hard work of a couple people and their contributions to the updates of the program of studies. Ms. Julie Ferrara, our Director of College and Career Readiness, and my Curriculum Director for STEM, Dr. Jennifer Thomas, and Curriculum Director for Humanities, Paul Casey. They've worked really hard to make this what it is. So to start, just a quick overview of general updates. Oh, a nice quote there as well. So we'll start with that.
It's going. There we go.
So these are the highlights of what we will be going in depth about tonight as far as updating. Not every subject area needed to be updated. So these are bulleted pieces right here. So I don't have to hit on every single little detail. There's a whole host of general updates that occur, updating dates, numbers, table of contents, formatting, things like that occur throughout. I'll start with our career education. There's two pieces I'll be going into this section. The first is around my future and career success. That has been a 9th grade course for the last couple years. We are looking to move that to 10th grade for a couple different reasons. And that would launch in the 25-26 school year. So next school year, this course would not run because currently all 9th graders are taking it. And so when we move it to 10th grade, there's no one to take it because they've all taken it in 9th grade. We would pick that up with our current 8th graders as they move into 10th grade would be the first class to take this as 10th grade. And it would be geared towards our students in our career pathways, along with anybody else that's interested. It would be open to students. We are exploring potentially having our after dark students enroll in this course as well as it works on those introductions to pathways and a lot of the soft skills that go into the workplace. Here is a list of our pending after dark programs, and actually the top one from Essex Tech, the early education and care, we learned late last week that we've been approved for that, so that's actually not even pending anymore. That's all set to go, bring us up to 5 that are offered through Essex Tech. Salem High School, after their course selection, lets us know what they have for numbers. The 5 here are along with our 2 existing, and hopefully we'll have some spots available for those, but we'll be finding that out shortly. Within our media program, just a name change in courses to show that they are a sequential, they are in sequence from the previous titles made that a little hard to tell. So switching it to narrative filmmaking, advanced filmmaking, and so that's an introductory and then a more advanced course. Within visual arts, same thing, taking digital design and Panther Press and renaming them Graphic Design 1 and Graphic Design 2. It's just in greater detail, allowing for students to kind of know by name. We are also going to be adding AP Art History to the visual arts as well. Excited about that. Within performing arts, there's another name change. We're actually broadening the topics from history of rock to history of popular music. It will entail more than just rock. Within family consumer science, we are looking to shift food service from a 5-credit full year course to a 2.5 semester course. What we found is our numbers dipped quite a bit as this was a full year course. The feedback we got from students was they weren't taking it because they didn't want to tie up a full year with this. They wanted to vary their electives, and so this enables that to happen, and looking to get our numbers back up in food service, which has been a popular course over the years. Probably the most significant change we're proposing here is adding a pilot for a course named Preserving Democracy. And I'm going to have Mr. Casey talk more in depth in 1 second about that. Along with this, in a nutshell, this will be a 12th grade history course, and it will satisfy a couple of different pieces that Mr. Casey will go into. But to note here as well, we currently require 17.5 credits of history. That's US 1, US 2, World, and an elective. So we're looking to up that from 17.5 to 20. So it would now be US 1, US 2, World, and then Preserving Democracy for our senior history course. This would not be a graduation requirement till 2027, but we will pilot it next year for grades 11 and 12. So Mr. Casey will talk more about that.
Great. Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
going to try to get your slideshow up. Hold on 1 second. All right. Is that showing now? Are you seeing the BHS social studies slide?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So as Mr. Thomas said, we're proposing a new course for next year called Preserving Democracy that will be offered as an elective pilot for our 11th and 12th graders. However, we are looking to make this a required course for the class of 2027, which is our current freshmen. And I'm just going to speak a little bit about how we got here to the decision to implement this course, or propose implementing this course. So over the past 6 years, the state of Massachusetts has issued 2 new education laws that directly affect the teaching and learning of history and social studies in high school. And additionally, as many of you know, the school committee passed a resolution in 2020 that states that all students at BHS take at least one course that exposes them to race, inequality, bias, or prejudice. I'm going to go over the steps that we've taken as a department to satisfy these laws and this resolution, and then kind of go into how we came up with this course. So just with the individual laws, and I think most everybody's aware of these, the civics law, or an act to promote and enhance civic engagement, is the law that states that every student in middle school and every student in high school will complete at least one civics project before they leave middle school and before they leave high school. As we know, the 8th grade civics course has this embedded in their coursework. In the high school, we have a civics course. It's a 2.5 credit elective. However, so we had to figure out ways to embed this in our curriculum as well, which was a little bit more challenging. The next law that's a little bit more recent is an act concerning genocide education. This law states that all students will take at least one course that teaches at least one genocide. Now, as a school, we are satisfying this law by teaching US 2 and by World. However, as we'll go into, we felt that just by doing that, we weren't satisfying the spirit of the law, even though we are satisfying the law itself. And lastly, in 2020, the school committee issued a resolution that stated that by 2025, graduation requirements would be changed to mandate that all of our students take at least one course that has the focus on race, inequality, bias, or prejudice. And therefore, Beverly Public Schools will continue to work with organizations to enhance our curriculum and staff training. So just the steps that we've taken in regards to each one of these laws. The civics law, as I said, was a little bit more challenging for us than obviously the middle school, which has a civics class with the embedded project. We instead, as a department, assigned all social studies electives with a civics project of the teacher's choice. So for instance, every student at Beverly High School has to take at least one elective, one 2.5 credit elective in order to graduate. So every history elective course is implementing a project of the teacher's choice. We've also offered professional development to teachers on implementing civics projects. We received a grant last year specifically for designing and implementing the civics projects at Beverly High School, and we've since used grant funds to establish a two-phase civics committee. Last year, we collaborated with the middle school. They came to the high school every month to discuss best practices on civics projects and where their vision was with Beverly High School's continued implementation of the civics project. And then this year we have a committee made up solely of high school teachers who are kind of doing the same thing, determining the efficacy of the current model with the 2.5 credit elective, having the project embedded, and then coming up with solutions, if we determined that that wasn't working to satisfy the spirit of the law. We've also used grant funds to create a one-year stipend position this year with the purpose of collecting data on the current civics project and then collaborating with that committee to develop an alternative plan if we felt that it wasn't as effective as we wanted it to be. With the genocide law, we applied for last year and received maximum grant funding for the implementation of coursework associated with the law. We've partnered with Salem State and Facing History to offer professional development, which many of our teachers have been taking advantage of, revolving around genocide education. And then during our professional learning communities, we've put an emphasis on state standards relating to and including genocides. And then for our school committee resolution, we've obviously continued to offer Facing History as an elective, which satisfies the resolution. We actually developed two new electives, American Identities and World Cultures, with that focus in mind. We implemented a new English curriculum this year with diverse texts, which are exposing students to many of the themes found in the resolution. And we, interestingly enough, as a civics committee, many of our social studies teachers were talking about how to implement a new course that would focus on that civics law while also bringing to light many of the topics that are discussed in the school committee resolution. And our Student Advisory Council, which is led by Dr. Trochek, was also talking about the same thing concurrently, but not together. So we recently got together with the Student Advisory Council and received feedback on potential coursework that could accomplish all of these things. So what our civics committee came up with was that although our electives were accomplishing the civics project goal, it wasn't necessarily accomplishing what the spirit of the law we felt is. And what the civics committee, myself, talking to the Student Advisory Council, kind of came up with was this idea to create an entire course that embodies all of these laws and resolutions. And that course is what we're calling Preserving Democracy. Now, as we see our current social studies requirements, we have US 1, which is taken in 9th grade, US 2 or APUSH, which is taken in 10th grade, and then World History or AP World History, which is taken in 11th grade. And then every student has to take at least one semester-long elective course worth 2.5 credits anytime in high school. The proposal that we're putting forward for the class of 2027, which would be this year's freshmen, would follow the same pattern, with the exception that in 12th grade, they would be taking this course, Preserving Democracy, as a requirement, and no longer have the elective course, the 2.5 credit elective course, as a requirement. And I'm going to go into the course description here, but we did this with the mindset that Preserving Democracy in itself would cover the civics law, the genocide law, and the school committee resolution in one. So what this course does is explores how choice and power operate within society and how civic institutions can be harnessed to make the society more just and equitable. Through this course, students will examine their roles and responsibilities as national and global citizens and discover their ability to create positive change in their own world through the civic process. Historical efforts to secure greater freedom for more members of society are our best guides in the process of preserving and expanding democracy and examining the past. Students will develop a critical civic lens through which to better assess the contemporary health of U.S. democracy. Students will also develop their sense of civic responsibility through a student-led capstone civics project. And just to briefly kind of discuss the makeup of the course. We're looking at this to be a senior course, so we understand that the majority of our seniors would be on their internship starting around April vacation. So although it's a full year course, as a 5-credit course, we're kind of thinking about it as more of a 3-quarter course, or a 3-part course, not a 3-quarter course, but where the first quarter of the year, students would be taking a look at an identity aspect as it relates to citizenship, much in the way that the civics project is aligned to do, but also taking the pedagogy of the current facing history course and how they introduce that course. It would then go into examining a case study of the fragility of democracy, for instance, the Holocaust, Reconstruction, the Civil Rights era, and then go into more of an assessment of a student's current democracy, taking a look at local democracy, state democracy, and federal democracy, and then embedding that civics project in there. We understand that there'll be a number of sections of this course. So in order to kind of help with the oversaturation of local civics projects, we're recommending that every class, every section do a project, with the idea that some students that go out on their internship in April, a lot of them actually do projects, that they could continue the efforts of their classmates from that class project and take hold of it and make that their REACH project moving forward. So that is the course and the proposed course. I'm happy to take questions if there are any.
And our school committee members mentioned to see a hand raised or a gesticulation of some sort. Ms. Visnick.
Ms. Abel, I don't have a question. I just want to say that this class sounds fantastic, Mr. Casey. To the point where I'd like to come in and take it myself. But in all seriousness, I think that we did make our resolution a number of years ago, and it's incredibly encouraging from my perspective to see that resolution and our goal come to fruition, especially in this particular format. So just a tip of the cap. I'm only sad that I don't have a student still at Beverly High to take this class.
Thank you.
I was going to offer a similar comment that this class looks really well thought out and really addresses some of the ideals that we were speaking about. I am fortunate enough that I've got a class of 26 and a class of 27, so hopefully they both have an opportunity and that it fits in their schedule. I think that's my only question, is how to ensure that schedules allow for such an important capstone opportunity to really fit in with everything else that our students are doing. I can't imagine with senior privilege being an option how scheduling works out, but I'm sure that you are figuring that all out as you go.
Yeah, as far as the scheduling aspect, it will fit in the way we've when we've run a couple of mock schedules around that, and it's something where right now students might take that elective earlier in their high school career. So now it's almost like swapping out, where they might have that time as a senior. Now it's going to be a little earlier. So as far as the trajectory of a student, it shouldn't change much or clog up a schedule.
Managing a lot of additions. Just one second. Just want to say that we are being broadcast on BevCam on their YouTube channel, as well as or streamed on their YouTube channel, as well as broadcast on Channel 6. If anyone wants to watch the meeting that way, I am trying my best to manage the ins and outs. And was that Dr. Trocek? You wanted to say something next?
Yep. No, I was just wondering if I can keep. There's more, I think, to present, so I wanted to keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost there.
Yeah.
As Mr. Casey stated, we do have a civics course that we currently run. This would obviously take the place of what we currently have, so we would not run that 2.5 elective for civics. also with this change, we would move world mythology completely under the English department, where it up until this point it was satisfying history elective credit. We won't need to do that anymore. We have a portion of our courses that are on rotation for every other year. These are the courses that will be offered. These are courses that are not offered next year. They were offered this year. And these are courses that were that are going to be offered and that did not run this past year. They were offered but not run due to enrollment.
And we end with another quote.
Happy to take any questions.
Ms. Visnick, you have your hand raised.
I do. Thank you, Ms. Abel. Mr. Thomas, do you envision that we'll come back to kind of like as you're cycling? Well, you just showed we're going to offer some classes that we didn't offer last time. Do you envision that we'll cycle back to offering the history of Beverly again? Or is that class kind of off the docket?
No, it's right now the way it sits, it's on an every other year cycle. So it was an off year coming. So it is offered every other year.
Thank you.
Dr. Silva, I see your hand.
Yes, Mr. Thomas, could you speak to the types of math and science classes that are going to be offered at the high school? Or is that not, I don't recall seeing, I saw some math, but just curious to know what is going to be offered.
Yeah, so I can definitely go into that. The reason they were not highlighted in this presentation is there's no changes coming in those particular areas.
Okay.
Keep muting myself. Ms. Coelho, please.
Thank you. In regards to the food service elective, if you have a child that was not able to get into the Essex Tech or was not able to get into the After Dark program at Essex Tech or Salem, would they be able to have the opportunity to take food service as a full year instead of just for a semester if culinary is their goal?
Yeah, so it would be two different courses, you know, a first semester course and a second semester course, but it's not something that would be out of the question.
Okay. And then I was just talking to Lorinda about this as somebody who was a world mythology major. It does actually sit under English and history. It is very important to be part of both for that.
Yeah, and in our thinking behind that was it did satisfy the current graduation requirement, and whereas it's no longer needed for that, we placed it under English just to be able to consolidate our faculty teaching it and just for ease of under one subject matter.
That's it. It was my favorite class.
Mayor Cahill, I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam President. The slide that showed classes that are going to be offered at either the Tech or Salem High for our Beverly High students who go over there after their first couple of blocks.
Yes.
Yeah, if we can get to it.
That's
I'm trying not to make everybody dizzy. There we go.
Yeah, so these are all pending as new offerings. What is pending? What does pending mean?
Yeah, so with the exception of, like I said, the first one on the list, the Essex Tech Early Education and Care, we actually got word late last week that has been approved, so we actually have some slots available there. The other 5 which are at Salem High School. We don't know if we have slots there until they do their course offerings for the students in course selection. And once they do that and see what spots they have open, they can offer them out to us. So that's why they're pending right now. We currently
Sorry, go ahead.
We currently have at Salem automotive and medical assisting, and we know we're going to have slots there as going into next year already.
Do we have kids who've expressed an interest in these courses? So we've got kids to slot in if we are told that there are slots available?
So our students are in the process of, we have a group of students that have identified that their interest in either of the Essex Tech After Dark or Salem High After Dark, without declaring exactly what shop yet. And so we have a group that's declared their interest, and this week they're going to be actually working on narrowing that down to a specific shop.
And this is for the fall?
Correct. Yep.
So I will say I've expressed frustration many times with Essex Tech for not making electrical available to our students. It's a huge failing on their part, I believe. Do we know how many sections of electrical technologies Salem High offers, how many total slots there are, and how many we might hope for our own students to be able to occupy?
So offhand, I don't know how many slots they have, but basically the way After Dark works is whatever they don't fill, they open up to us in this case. With Salem, we're pretty exclusive to them, and they've been awesome as far as accommodating our students. And it works the same way at Essex Tech too. So it's kind of what's left over is what we're able to get students into.
But at Essex Tech, it's different, I believe, right? I mean, the After Dark program is for all member communities, or those that have an interest in participating in that way. So it's not about kind of taking the leftovers there. It's if they offer it in that setting, our students have an equal opportunity to get in as other school students do as well. I know Dr. Trochik has got her hand up. I don't mean to stump you either, Mr. Thomas.
No, that's fine. The difference, you are correct, there's a slight difference between Essex and Salem. We have at Essex Tech, they open certain specialties or programs to us. However, their decision is based on their enrollment. They know it sooner, I think, than Salem does. Salem is working with us to expand our access to all of their programs based on enrollment. So there are some program offerings at Essex Tech that are not offered. Electric's not even on the menu for us at Essex Tech. However, at Salem, these are expansions. So anything that's on this list right now, we went through a process. You have to go through a whole process to be approved as part of the After Dark partnership. And Salem and Beverly went through that together with DESE, and were approved to be able to do this. We're the only two public high schools that are combining and partnering to do that. This is an expansion on the offerings. We went through on the original two. This is an expansion on the offerings. And so, again, it always is based on enrollment because there have to be seats available for our students. But our goal in expanding to Salem was to provide more access to our students in programs that they showed some interest in. So I hope that explains it.
Yep, all understood and appreciate that. So this will be the first time that there may be some electrical offerings for our students at Salem.
Correct.
And there's no offering of electrical at the Tech, nor do they intend to offer that out next year?
In the current year, correct. It's not offered to us in this coming year.
Gotcha. Big failing. All right, thanks.
Okay, I see lots of hands. I'm going to go with Ms. Robinson, Ms. Visnick, and then Dr. Silva. Ms.
Thank
Robinson?
you. Yes, thank you. Mr. Thomas, I was just a couple of things about my future and career success. I was just wondering if that course has changed since it was first offered. Is it still a self-paced kind of independent course? And how many students do you think will be taking that?
There was a revision that took place over the summer. There still is a component where they're working with a particular program around career skills that would be looked at as more independent. As far as going forward, we see some value in our 10th grade students who are closer to the workforce in utilizing the skills that are worked on in that course at that age. Right now, if I had to say off the top of my head, we'd be looking at probably 50 to 100 taking that as sophomores, depending on a couple of factors. We will open that to anyone who wants to take it, but it is part of our career pathways and an introduction to that. So anybody that's taking part in our career pathways would be in it, which, that's 30 to 50. And then you say if there's more students that are interested in it, but beyond that, we're looking at having our Essex Tech Salem after dark students take it as well. That's where I get kind of that 50 to 100 range.
Okay, and then just, are there any opportunities in the schedule to offer academic support classes for our students who might require those, who are just our students on IEPs?
So our current model for special education is through the co-taught model, a push-in model. And so at this time, there is not a plan for an academic support.
That would have to be organized through a team meeting process anyway. Anything like that, I would have to go through a team meeting process for something like that to be supported for a student.
Okay, thank you.
Next, Ms. Bisnick, and then Dr. Silva.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ms. Abel. Mr. Thomas, my question is piggybacking a little bit back on Ms. Coelho's question, where the mythology class had been kind of dual listed. What does this change mean for I'm now only going to get English credit. It's not going to be a social studies class anymore. But previously, did I get half and half credit?
No, so it would satisfy your 2.5 credit elective for history. So for our current seniors, our current juniors, our current sophomores, that would satisfy it. When we slide it to English, there's no graduation requirement that it satisfies for English, and in turn won't for history once we implement the 12th grade course. But there is a pool of a part of our credits where it doesn't fall under a grad requirement piece. The students are able to just, there's a piece of the credit structure that are not attached to a particular course or subject area. So basically they just filling credit time is what they'd be looking to do, and this would fall under that. So it obviously works towards their graduation of 140 credits, but they wouldn't need that to satisfy a subject area requirement, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. So as Madam President Abel likes to say, sometimes we like our children to just experience joy and just the joy of learning. But just to be clear,
it's a popular course for sure.
Right. This class used to satisfy a graduation requirement. And with the introduction of the Preserving Democracy, in conjunction with this class being moved over to English only, this class then becomes one of those joyful classes. It is no longer a graduation requirement fulfiller.
Correct.
Fantastic. Yep. Thank you.
With the after dark programs that are pending, if they open up and students are accepted, are they being offered as just a 1-year access to the program, or is it a multiple year access to those programs?
Yes, students apply as sophomores, and they would stay in these shops for junior and senior year. It's a 2-year commitment.
Great, thank you.
Offered to the committee. I actually attended the presentation last Thursday at the high school, and I was really impressed with the number of parents and caregivers that were in attendance and asking very important questions like that question as well. And certainly both schools indicated if it turns out for some reason the student doesn't quite have the right fit, they'll work with whatever's in the student's best interest. But yes, it is a commitment to join the program because many of the programs lead to actual certificates or different types of completion and work study opportunities, including internship. I was really impressed with the Salem opportunity to do medical assisting as soon as the end of that first year. So over the summer, students would have access to co-op opportunities where they could put some of the skills and credentials that they're building right to work that first summer between junior and senior year. Certainly, there is a slide deck that Julie Ferrara and the guidance department have circulated via some of the guidance emails that come out every week. And I can forward those to other members who maybe aren't on the distribution list anymore, because the slide deck was really informative and had lots of links to videos for some of those programs as well. So I'll actually take that as an action item to make sure everyone on the school committee has access to that slide deck, the links, the videos, and more information about those after dark opportunities that are a wonderful addition to our district.
The two years, junior and senior year, the hours also need to satisfy a certain amount to for them to earn industry recognized credentials that they'll come out of that program with.
Right.
I don't see any more hands for our school committee questions on the curriculum or course updates that the high school is presenting us. Dr. Churchick, did you have a recommended motion on this? Generally, curriculum instruction and or school committee votes on these updates.
Correct. It is on as a voting item. And so the superintendent recommends the program of studies as presented with the changes for approval for 24-25.
So moved.
Thank you for that recommendation and for the motion, Ms. Bisnick. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Is there any further discussion from the school committee before I call the roll vote? Not seeing any hands, I'm going to call the roll. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza is still absent. Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Bisnick?
Yes.
And Ms. Abel, yes. The adoption per the recommendation of the superintendent and the presentation of our leadership at the high school has passed. That's 6-0 with 1 absence.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you very much. And so our, I had a question slide. Sorry, I didn't see that. Our next item on the superintendent's report is an information sharing for the committee and for anybody who's in attendance. This is sort of part 2. If you remember, I was here in December and had a conversation, it might have been at curriculum and instruction, regarding math visioning and the work that we're doing and some of the research and direction and proposals that we have. So I'm going to turn it over. We have a number of people here tonight to talk about this. We have Lisa Oliver, who's our middle school principal. We have Jim Grocke, who's the director of math and science at the middle school. We have Mr. Thomas, and we have Dr. Jen Thomas, our director of STEM at the high school. So I'm going to turn it over. I think, Mrs. Oliver, you're going to take it away for us?
I am. Okay, so thank you for having us this evening and allowing us to present our grades 7 through 12 math visioning proposal. This is a result of a strong collaboration between the middle school and the high school that I'm very appreciative of, not to mention the support from the central office. So as Dr. Trocheck said, tonight you'll hear from myself, from Mr. Thomas. You'll hear from our curriculum lead, James Grocke, and also we have Jennifer Thomas available as well on the call. So as you know, we want you to be aware, we're obviously committed to academic excellence. And with that being said, we're excited to present some innovative thinking to you that we believe will provide access and equity for all of our students to reach high levels of achievement. So here we are, just a little bit of background. As Dr. Trocheck has already said, this is some information that was previously presented. This is little bit of background around the equity audit that has already been completed. So our thinking has emerged from some of the key findings that came out of this audit. And this has propelled us to do additional research around some action steps that would help us close some of the achievement gaps that we have. So we've identified barriers we want to acknowledge, and that they have some systemic factors that impact our successful steps forward. The practice of tracking, for example, which is currently done in Beverly, done at the middle school, is an example that's backed by research that does not yield positive academic gains for all students. Therefore, detracking or de-leveling is a crucial reform strategy that we're looking at. So findings from our audit and recommendations previously shared here on this slide from Dr. Trocek, just to highlight it a little bit. Our growth scores in math show an underperformance, particularly in the areas of our subgroups. And recommendations for that were a curriculum review, which we have adopted two new actually, curriculums at the middle school, one for grade 5 and one for grade 6 through 8. So that has been something that has accelerated our learning at the middle school. And we are also, it's not here on the slide, but we're also partnering with TNTP. So they're a consultant that comes in and works with us around best practice, which has also been extremely helpful to us at this time. Okay. And Mr. Grocki is going to talk a little bit about some research that we have here.
Well, good evening.
And if I go too fast with the slides, just slow me down. I'm trying to do it from catching up. So
doing great.
Well, good evening. As a former middle school and math teacher and administrator from pre-K all the way to 12th grade, this is something we see everywhere. And after the past 5 or 6 months together, it's really firsthand at the middle school. The first thing we talk about kind of is speed and time. We're really moving kind of fast in order to get to the next topic. But that first bullet we talk about is really trying to hone in on understanding the concepts and mastering them. So for example, graphing. We're racing towards linear equations and systems of equations. And when we get to that topic, we end up reviewing graphing anyways. So really getting a chance to hone in and settle in on those mastery skills that our students need is really important. The next one, reducing focus on applied skills. We talk an awful lot about real world application. One thing that I talk a lot about with the teachers, with our students, is about making meaning versus accepting meaning. And we have really a golden opportunity to really tone in and have our students understand what it means to make that meaning, tie that emotion to learning, to truly understand and focus on what those are and carry those skills, as opposed to just accepting meaning and moving on. The last two kind of go hand in hand with the achievement gap. I know we've talked at exhaustion as educators about the pandemic, but coming out of this and kind of looking in the rearview mirror, we need to make sure that we're up to speed. We're still at this point where we're reculturing our students. As Ms. Oliver will allude to it at points during the lesson, during the presentation today, we are really at a very fragile stage with our kids, and this is a very unique opportunity where they are. They are the age they are. We want them to be the age they are, and there's a lot on their plate. With that goes the anxiety piece. With that goes that reculturing piece. We want to make sure we can put less on their plate, but still hold them high in academic achievement.
That brings us to our goal based on our findings, is to create a more equitable experience for our students in grades 7 through 12 while raising academic achievement for everybody. This is phase 1 of a math pathway that we are proposing. So presently you can see we're looking at detracking grade 7. And as previously talked about, the research that we've done shows that tracking sets a path of inequity for our students. Excuse me, I blocked myself there. Okay. And what we're looking to do is have, instead of having curriculum compression in grade 7, which means that they're taking multiple curriculum. They're participating in multiple curriculums in grade 7. So some students are taking grade 7 and 8 standards and then moving on to grade 8 for algebra. So what we're recommending is that instead of doing that, having students in grade 7 participate in grade 7 standards and then move on to grade 8 for pre-algebra in grade 8. From there, and the reasoning for this, I should say this part to you, we're really looking on building a very strong foundation for students as they go into Algebra 1, because Algebra 1 is the foundation for accelerated and higher level math courses at the high school. So we're looking at making a shift from 3 years of curriculum in 7th and 8th to full year of algebra into grade 9 for the desired math pathway. Why now? We have a sense of urgency to improve academic achievement for all of our students. We want the best for our students, and we believe that changes based on some of the research that we've done will make a positive impact. For example, research demonstrates that 11 and 12-year-old students have not yet developed the abstract reasoning skills to successfully comprehend and retain concepts of Algebra 1. Furthermore, the curriculum compression in 7-8 does not provide, as I previously said, the solid foundation for accessing higher level math courses in high school. So math leveling it forces tracking not only in the area of mathematics at the middle school, but also in other core subject areas. So our timeline for making these changes that we believe will positively impact student achievement is progressive. It is beginning with the class of 2030, which is our current 6th grade, which means that our current 6th graders at the middle school would have grade 7 math and then pre-algebra in grade 8. Our current grade 7 students who are in accelerated math, I just want to note, will continue on to Algebra 1 at the middle school next year.
And there are some quotes here, and I'd like to kind of rally around Katie Novak's quote here, who's well known for her UDL research. And she says, when students are leveled, they're only expected to achieve at a certain level. This is where scaffolding comes into play for us a great deal, and teaching up our students and teaching up them in their entirety. We want to be able to create an individual productive struggle. We talk an awful lot at the middle school about productive struggle. And what does that mean? But it's individualized. It can't be across the board. It's for that one particular student. And again, I think it goes back to, we want the students to make meaning and tie that emotion to learning and understanding, carry it through their mathematical career, as opposed to just accepting. So Katie Novak's quote is really telling in regards to leveling and going in that direction and going away from that.
Recent findings. Here we have studies show that middle school brains are just not ready for the concepts of algebra until 14 and sometimes 15 years old, as I had previously stated. And this has nothing to do with intelligence. It's really just a matter of time, giving students that extra time to really build that solid foundation. Middle school teachers, this is a quote from a recent article. It is basically saying that we're shaping the trajectory of students' pathways for math starting in grade 6. So right now, our grade 6 teachers recommend students for their pathway for math. So we're starting it really early, and what we're proposing is giving students that extra time to really develop that foundation, consider the career path that they are on, and make some decisions once they are at the high school level. And that's it. Okay, so here we are here. This is our current sequence. You can see here for the middle school, grade 7. If you are in accelerated math in grade 7 and grade 8, you take Algebra 1. Some students do take standard grade 7 math, in grade 7 and then have grade 8 math or grade 8 standards in grade 8. And then they move on to algebra at the high school. And Mr. Thomas is going to speak to what that high school trackway looks like, pathway, excuse me.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
so
Did I
if you
go
could
too
just go
far?
back. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry.
So to the right side here, if you stick to the top track, our students that were successful in Algebra 1 in 8th grade move on to geometry, honors geometry in 9th grade, and they are on a pathway to calculus. Our students that maybe needed some reinforcement in Algebra 1 after taking an 8th grade, with the trajectory we have, they top out at pre-calc. And then if you go down to the grade level bottom track here, you see that students would top out at pre-calc or college review math. And this is if a student did not take any courses outside of the BHS, like during the summer or something like that, to double up somewhere. So you're seeing certain pathways are putting students on tracks that can only get to certain points. So in other words, if you are on that grade level track, you really can't get to calculus the way it's configured. So Miss Oliver touched on this, and I think it's worth noting. Currently, we start tracking in the middle of 6th grade, and what I mean by that is the recommendations start as they get ready for 7th grade, and then in 7th grade is when students are put in the advanced track or the grade level track, and that continues on up through high school. And often determines a student's path for all of high school math. And included in that, what tends to happen as well is your advanced math group tends to stay with the same cohort of students, the same group of students in English, in science, and in history. With your students that are on the grade level track, the same thing. You tend to stay with that grouping of students, and what that does is it cohorts students and keeps them on the same path over year to year. What happens when students come up is our students enter the high school either in this honors or advanced track, or they are in that grade level in CP track. There is some variability in that, but for the most part, that's people stay on that track, our students. What happens when this limits access to higher level course offerings for all subjects, not just math, the way it's cohorted. As a result, for our students that are not in the honors level track, it impacts GPA, class rank, and ability to achieve National Honor Society status. Here is a pathway recommended by DESE, and this is really what we're proposing at the next step up from the high school level. The National Council of Supervisors of Mathematics, and they recommend this as well as DESE. And if you notice, after grade 8, when they talk about Algebra 1, the acceleration point or doubling up is in that sophomore year of Algebra 2 and geometry together. This enables students to get to calculus while taking Algebra 1 as a 9th grade student. So the piece we really want to get to here with the second phase of what we're doing here is looking at detracking our 9th grade core courses. And I'm going to bring you back to some of the points of emphasis that were made earlier. We want students determining their path at the end of 9th grade, not in 6th grade. We think developmentally this is a more appropriate time. We talk a lot about that transition year from 8th grade to 9th grade, and that we want to give students a clean slate, a fresh start, the ability to make their own path. This does that, rather than students being recommended for something in 6th and then going forward in 7th and 8th grade with a path already determined. This increases academic equity for all subgroups. It increases accessibility to all high school course offerings. It ensures that strong foundation of Algebra 1 for a full year of algebra as a 9th grade student. We talked about the importance of that Algebra 1 as the foundational course for all higher level math. And from research, improved behavior outcomes and improved academic output on all ends. So I'm talking a lot about kind of broad data points, and I think it's worth drilling down and really giving you a detailed version of this. So I'm going to compare two students here. Student 1 was in honors entering 9th grade. This student currently is ranked in the top 10 of our senior class. Unbelievable GPA of 4.8. Student identifies as Caucasian. Their math class as a senior is AP Calc AB, the highest math class we offer in person. Student 2 came into high school on the CP track, is currently ranked outside of the top 100 in their class, a GPA below 3.7. Demographics fits into subgroups under Hispanic and low income, and was able to get to honors pre-calc as a senior math class. Now, comparatively here on the next slide is MCAS scores between our two students. So student 1 who started in our honors track and student 2 who started in our CP track had identical ELA scores on MCAS in the exceeding range. So the same exact score. Student 2 scored 8 points higher on the math MCAS than student 1. Both were in the exceeding range. So why do I point this out? Well, the MCAS is supposed to measure where a student is. It's an equal measurement for both students. And you take a student that was in the CP track and they are well over a point lower in GPA and ranked almost 100 spots lower than their counterpart that entered high school in the honors track. It should note that student 2 eventually was moved into the honors track, recommended by teachers to move up after their freshman year, but unable to get to National Honor Society because of starting in those CP courses, which are on a 4-point scale as opposed to a 5-point. And like I said, the class rank and the GPA are significantly lower for a student that achieved the same on ELA MCAS and a better score on math MCAS. That's just one example of many that we've been able to find as we really drill down on data. So again, coming back to it, the current sequence that we walked you through before, there's an advanced track on the top and a grade level track on the bottom, and the terminal classes for math at the high school level, calculus for that advanced group that took geometry as freshmen, and pre-calc or college review math for our grade level students who entered as CP students. So the proposed sequence that I referenced earlier would, picking it up where Miss Oliver left off with moving that grade 7 as a heterogeneous group, grade 8 as a heterogeneous group, into all students taking Algebra 1 in their 9th grade year. From there, as we see students in where their success lies in Algebra 1, we would move the acceleration point to grade 10, which would put Algebra 2 and Geometry being taken as sophomores if the end goal was to get to Calculus AB and potentially AP Calculus BC. For students that were not looking to pursue a college career that needed to be on that track for math, they could they don't have to double up. They could take geometry as a sophomore, algebra 2 as a junior, and move into pre-calc or college review math as a senior. I should note that AP Stats is an offering that's available to all. So again, phase 2 really comes into the piece around detracking the 9th grade core subjects. We want, and again, I went through these points of emphasis before, so I'm not going to go through every single one, but they do apply to all subjects beyond math. Things that would remain unchanged with this proposal, with the phase 2, GPA would remain on a 5-point scale. Class rank would still exist as it does. And the current offerings for grades 10 through 12 with CP, honors, and AP levels in core subjects would still exist. There is no planning to change any of that. Timeline for implementation. It should really be noted, this is really a 3-year plan. This is not something where we're looking to do a cannonball in with, so to speak, and start this in the fall. This spring, I'm looking to get teacher teams out to visit schools that have successfully detracked grade 9. There are some area schools that have gone on this path. For next school year, where we'd really be looking to build up our professional development around UDL and scaffolding strategies. There wouldn't be any change in course and our current offerings the way Beverly High School is composed right now next year. There's no change because our current 8th grade, they're already in their advanced track for math. We're not going to pull that back. We would offer it as we have for the last, I don't know, as long as I can remember. And, you know, the thing we're looking at, I did talk about professional development for our teachers. That's a huge, huge piece of this as we're changing the structure of some of our courses. And that third bullet down, it's going to allow our teachers to really be mindful of building their classes with these UDL and scaffolding strategies as they go through the year next year. That's unchanged. So in other words, they're going to be able to be mindful of, okay, when I get to this point the following year in 2 years, how would I approach this with a heterogeneous class? And so we think it's a unique opportunity where we're really taking the time and being careful and thoughtful about how to implement this. That 25, 26 year, so 2 falls for this is the current 7th grade. We would look to detrack science, history, and English. We will continue to offer honors geometry that year because, again, they are already tracked in that advance. The 7th grade already has an advance in a grade level group, so we wouldn't pull that away. But we would look for the 26-27 school year for full implementation of detrack course subjects in grade 9. So that would be the current 6th grade student. Again, the big piece of this is our professional development. It'll be the core of what we do as we end this school year and into the following school year. It'll be the core of our professional development plan. We're being very purposeful in our slow rollout to ensure fidelity in what we're doing and implement it with care. Just a nice quote. I'll allow you to all read it on your own. You've heard my voice for about 2 hours plus now, so I think everybody would be happy just to read it on their own.
Did I go too fast? I'm sorry.
Nope.
I
Well,
finished.
not for me, but I know it was on there. So lastly, we did develop through a lot of hard work by Dr. Jen Thomas, an FAQ around this proposal. I do think if we're able to, and I know you might not have it right in front of you, the way it's set up, but I think it will troubleshoot a lot of questions that come up immediately, but I know there'll definitely be some. I already see some hands up, and so I turn it back over to you, Ms. Abel.
So Rachel, would you prefer us to walk through the FAQ and show people what questions are addressed here, or move to committee questions? I'm not sure how you want to do that.
Let's step through the FAQ. I did see Dr. Silva, then Mayor Cahill, then Ms. Robinson, but we will get to those questions after we step through the FAQ.
Okay. All right, Mark, do you want to walk us through? Or Dr. Thomas, do you want to walk us through? Either one of you, whatever.
Yep, I can take us right through
And
it.
am I sharing it? Are you all able to see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
So the first question about sliding Algebra 1 up to 9th grade is what math course can my student get to? So the first question answers that piece, and yes, they can get to calculus. The next 3 questions pertain to this is our current 8th grade and kind of their path of how things will look for them. Below that, class of 2029, that's our current 7th grade and how that will look for them. And then the top of the next page is for class of 2030, which is grade 6 students. So it's pretty detailed in how their path would look. Talks about the acceleration point from 7th grade to moving it to 10th grade. Some research-based quotes that acknowledge the foundation of algebra, along with the pathways that we can have students on with doing it this way. As I stated before, the National Council of Supervisors of Mathematics endorses detracking in math, and there's a supporting document there as well.
I think it's important the UBL and scaffolding in classrooms.
Yep, and there's actually a short video there as well, and this goes a little deeper into UDL and differentiated instruction.
And we will make that FAQ, we'll post that on our website for anybody that wants to reference that.
I first saw Dr. Silva, then Mayor Cahill, then Ms. Robinson, then Ms. Visnick. Dr. Silva, your question?
Yes, thank you. I have several questions, if that's okay.
I may cut you off at some point, but go ahead.
So where do the FAQs come from?
So we developed those based on what we thought would come up.
Okay. In terms of, and is there going to be an opportunity to hear from parents where this is that happening at this meeting, or is there another meeting where we will hear from parents about this?
So, Mrs. Oliver, I don't know if you want to speak to, I know that there's a plan for parent forums, for a parent discussion. You could take that away if you want.
Yeah, great question. As Dr. Trocek said, we will be conducting parent forums and give parent voice and an opportunity for them, for people that didn't get to see this presentation tonight or that did and want more information. So we're in the process of planning that so that parents can get more information and have the opportunity to really ask questions. We do realize it's a big change and that it's important that they have that opportunity.
Yeah, so I mean, to this point, I think it would be a good opportunity to have the school committee hear those questions, or so I guess I'm making a motion to see if we can create an opportunity to hear that parent feedback with the school committee present, or at least maybe part of it. Now I have I'll go with one more question, actually. Can you speak about districts who have implemented this strategy? And because I presume this is something that has happened in other school districts, and just comment on how this has improved math comprehension for high school students, if that's been tested or if there's data showing this.
So there's some area schools that have done this. Melrose is probably the closest to what we're looking to do at the high school level. And Lexington has it for ninth grade, but they also do it a little wider than what we're doing. There's different variations in other high schools. Wakefield is an example. Brookline would be an example. So there's some variations in how people do it, but those are some that we've spoken to and reached out to, and have plans to hopefully go visit.
Has it been long enough where there's data to show? Has it been in practice where there's data to show the improvement in high school performance?
I think from our end that you can see it from a couple of them. Obviously, COVID threw a monkey wrench into seeing a through line in it, but no, they've been doing it. Melrose has been doing it long enough, and Lexington has been doing it long enough to really be able to look at their data and cull data from it.
That's good.
Mayor Cahill?
Thank you, Madam President. So for Mr. Thomas or anybody from the team, first on MCAS, are there Algebra 2 concepts and geometry concepts tested on MCAS or part of the questions? And so what today, I guess, what percentage of our students are exposed to, all of the math concepts as opposed to going and not having had that exposure? And how will that be different with this? And if that's a question that's a little too hard to know you're going to get right, I'm happy for follow-up on it. I just, want to make sure that we understand that piece of it, how that may or may not impact MCAS.
Yep, I knew I'd hear it, so I was ready for that one. Thanks, Mayor.
Sure.
Any student in the high school is exposed to the standards that would be on MCAS, and those are specifically Algebra 1 and geometry standards. So that's for all of our students have access to that. What we feel is it's kind of it's an interesting point of conversation where our strongest students are taking algebra in that compressed grade 7 and grade 8 setup. And we actually think that level of student could be doing even better than they are, being they're the top 25% of our math students. We think they could actually perform better if they had that strong foundation as ninth grade with algebra, because it's a year-long course. It's not the compressed course. And these, like I say, these are our strongest math students. So if you look at it, you say, oh, well, they're being successful in math. They're doing pretty well for themselves. We think they could be, instead of being here, they could be even here, you know.
Couple other quick questions. Options for how to double up. I see the grade 10 geometry algebra 2. Is there not an option for grade 11 algebra 2 pre-calc? Is it conceptually those have to be sequential and that's why they're not offered as an opportunity?
Yes, I mean, subject matter, like I say, that's a DESE recommended time to do that because of the subject matter of geometry in algebra 2, whereas it's not, you don't need one to have the other according to that pathway. So that's why they picked that point.
So that's really the opportunity. Kind of along with that, do we have a sense of in what ways students might miss out on other academic opportunities by doubling in 10th grade in math?
Yeah, I mean, we currently have a small group that does that. So if somebody took, let's say, algebra 1 in 8th grade, and they maybe needed they needed to really reinforce some of the content from that, they might take honors algebra 1 as a freshman, and then sophomore, if they were strong and looking to get to that calc course at the end of senior year, they could double up with geometry and algebra 2. So we do have a very small portion of students that do that as 10th graders right now.
Yeah.
But along with that, can you ask your question again? I know I started talking.
And it's also I'm also happy to get a follow-up on it. You know, just what things won't be possible in their
That's right.
schedules.
Okay.
And are there kids with other particular, things going on whose schedules may make it really hard for doubling in math in high school?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to run into it at some point in high school where you have to make some choices about the coursework you want to take. Our feeling is that this will not bottleneck a schedule in a way that a student can't access what they want to take.
Okay. And then the last question I have is, it feels like the UDL and differentiated instruction is critical to the success of
Without question.
this. So, and again, it doesn't have to be now, although since we're not at the middle school, the lights aren't going out on us at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
We kind of have all the time. I'm teasing. It at some point, I really want to hear some more specifics and detail in that piece of this. Doesn't have to be right now, but
Yep, love to.
thanks. I'm all
Rachel,
set,
you're
Madam
muted.
President. Thanks.
Okay. Me? Okay, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. So what has the feedback been from your math teachers? What are any specific concerns? And also, I'm guessing this was brought up to the Student Advisory Council, and I'd just like to hear what kind of feedback you received from them about these big changes.
Is that directed to me or Miss Oliver?
I'm sorry, to you, Mr. Thomas.
Yep. So as far as teacher feedback, there's a wide array, and it ranges from very spirited conversations as people have their views one way or the other on it, to some people ranging to, well, I kind of already do some of it, as far as CP versus honors. My CP and honors is pretty close to each other right now. I really teach them the same way. So there's varying levels of how that conversation has gone for sure. I've had a lot of opportunity to talk to small groups, individuals, to groups on the larger. But as far as student presentation, my site council has heard this along with my PTO, so which have students on it. So
and the student advisories have been canceled the last three. A big snowstorm got in the way of one of those meetings, just in case anyone was wondering. And the last two we had, I think MCAS got in the way of one, and midterms got in the way of one. So we've had a couple of cancellations, but it absolutely will go to the student advisory group as a protocol, in a similar way that we did with the Facing History and Preserving Democracy course. And Mrs. Oliver, do you want to speak a little bit about your conversations with middle school teachers?
Sure. I would love to add that the conversations I've had with middle school teachers grades 6 through 8, I know from speaking with them that I would say the majority of them feel that this is a good change, and that having more time at the middle school level to build those foundational skills for algebra is really a positive move for students. So that's where we're at right now. I think 6th grade also feels a bit of pressure right now for being part of big decision making for the trajectory of students' pathways starting at such a young age. I know myself being in 6th grade was not the time for me to be making my decisions for math. So I think that's pretty much the common feeling at the middle school level.
Okay, I would love to hear more, like just more specifics from our educators, just as Dr. Silva wanted more specific. I'd love to hear what the math teachers specifically have to say about their concerns. And the only other question I have right now is, I saw that students could get to calculus, and there was a little bit about AB calculus, which is taught in a classroom, and BC is taught, that would be something through Eduseer, I guess, right? Like they don't have it in the classroom. And so I just like how will students be prepared for, I get the trajectory, I see how that goes, but how will they truly be prepared for the rigor of AB calculus?
I mean, I don't want to leave it all on Mark all the time, but I will say I think the idea is that they'll be better prepared because the research is showing us that Algebra 1 as a foundational course, and I see Dr. Thomas shaking her head. We've looked at a lot of research, and if you wanted to excel and to succeed in some of these areas, it really is that foundational Algebra 1. So, and I also don't want to, there's no vote tonight. No one's asking any of the school committee to vote this evening. This is an informational sharing opportunity. So I don't want you to feel pressure that we don't have time to bring back more information to you or any of those things. There's always opportunity for that. We, understand the breadth of this, sort of as a chain. And so we're trying to work really hard to bring it to you in pieces and let you have time to, reflect and resonate and think about all the things that we're talking about. So I just wanted to say that. And sorry, Mark, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, the other piece I really want to point out too is this opens an opportunity for more students to take calculus, and that's a huge goal of ours.
Thank you.
Dr. Flaherty?
Oh, yes. I just wanted to piggyback on something Dr. Trochik said as far as this is starting the conversation, and this will still come back from the middle school program of studies when we come back to you in March. And to just really underscore that one of the things that we're trying to do, as Mr. Thomas said, is get more kids prepared to take pre-calc and calculus in those upper grade levels. And that in order to do that, we really need to strengthen those Algebra 1 skills by having a more in-depth exposure and retention of the facts. And the other part is statewide. You saw when we did our MCAS presentation, not just in Beverly, but statewide, math scores with eighth graders are extremely low. And one of the reasons is that when we are asking 7th and 8th graders to do 3 years of math in 2 years, they're not getting deep knowledge of their foundational 8th grade skills, which is what MCAS is based on. MCAS is not based on Algebra 1. And so that's one of the hurdles that we're trying to reverse by changing this trajectory.
Can I just ask one more small question? About just will the I'll save it for later. Never mind.
Nick.
Thank you, Ms. Abel. When you come off of mute, you're very still much muted, and we can't hear you for a probably good 5-7 second delay.
Okay.
Just so you know. So when you come off of mute and you call on one of us, we're all kind of like looking at the computer, wondering what's going on. Did we get called on? I think that I have basically 2 questions, but I also have a little preamble. And so I want to start by saying I really appreciate this presentation and the one back in December, especially the focus on the equity lens. That said, I am really deeply concerned about the root cause or causes of our district's poor math scores. They are poor, and they have been poor and dropping for some time. I'm encouraged that the district recognizes the problem and is thinking of ways to address the equity issues. But I don't think that this particular proposal addresses our math scores. It absolutely addresses equity, and I'm happy about that. But I'm really worried about, I'm not serving on curriculum at this point in time, but I do try to keep my eye and my ear on that. And I don't believe that I have seen presentations of the analysis of our MCAS scores and where we are, quote unquote, failing, or patterns around areas of math instruction or math concepts that need to be improved, and how. So maybe it's possible that this proposal would address that, but that, in my opinion, is certainly missing. And I don't expect anybody to answer that this evening. But certainly as we move forward with this proposal, we will get to a point in time, I believe, where the school committee has to vote on this. And I, for one, will want to see data on the analysis of our MCAS scores and why we think this particular proposal may or may not address that. And so now my question, one of my questions is whether we have considered other alternatives to the unleveling at the 9th grade. I feel like even without seeing a lot of data, I feel like the presentation around getting rid of the condensing of content in the middle school is the right thing to do and build a very strong foundation. And then when we go into 9th grade, I wonder if we couldn't still have our levels in the 9th grade, starting in the 9th grade, by maybe doing something like a placement exam, or a whole nother approach relative to addressing our bad math scores. If in fact our bad math was only at 10th grade testing, have we considered offering math every single day instead of every other day, or instead of the block scheduling type of schedule? So those are 2 questions. Have we considered a placement exam instead of just saying, oh, we'll delay 1 more year and then let the students choose for themselves, regardless of when it happens, 9th or 10th grade? Have we considered a placement exam? And the second thing is, have we considered offering math every day instead of every other day?
So there's been conversations and questions raised about both of your questions, Ms. Visnick. In regard to the scheduling, we do not have the faculty to run math every single day. That would double up what we would need for math teachers, roughly, because you're putting twice as much math in the schedule. From a standpoint of looking at it from the exam piece, to say that students are just choosing where they're going, that's not accurate. The way it's set up now would be the way we do it, where teachers are involved in a conversation with students as they do course selection. Guidance is involved in that to assist in decision making, and ultimately families are involved in that. So that's the path we've been on. To shift back to exams, that would be something I'd have to do a lot more research on. I can't say that that I have enough information to be able to say whether that's a path worth pursuing.
Mr. Thomas, earlier this evening you said, and I have notes scribbled all over my table, so I apologize for not looking at you while I'm speaking with you, but I'm looking at some of my notes. You said that our educators are, or maybe it was Miss Oliver, I apologize, that our educators are determining which track the students go into, and that this change would allow our students to determine their path. But you just said the opposite. You said that it's going to be a collaborative. It's going to be, the parents and the guidance and the teachers. So it's not the students. And so if we really want to put students where they belong, I have to imagine that a placement test would be the best thing, as opposed to someone's thought about, oh, I think I belong in this class, or I want my student in an honors class, whether they can really hold their own in that class or not. So I suggest that be, I would like to see that be pursued at some level. And I don't, I don't, relative to teaching math every day, if we think that what's best for our students is that we teach math every day, then we need to figure out how to teach math every day. And we need to not be constrained by, or at least summarily dismiss an idea because of budget, right? We talk all the time here about the fact that our budget is our value system. And I want to make decisions based on what's best for children, not based on the fact that I can't, quote unquote, afford to have staff in a classroom teaching math every day. So again, I'll go back to where is the analysis of our MCAS data that shows why we're not doing well in math? I've seen the data that says we're not very equitable, and I'm all for fixing the equity issue, but I don't see anything about fixing our general math scores across our district. And my last question is relative to the citations that have been given this evening around the lack of benefit of using tracks. Is anybody on this call willing to reword that and say that we're going to discard homogeneous or purposeful groupings? Is it your understanding that citation about tracking being a bad thing includes purposeful and homogeneous groupings?
Well,
So can I, oh, sorry, I just wanted to ask, I'm wondering, Ms. Visnick, if you mean within classes or if you mean scheduling tracks. So tracking talks about creating a schedule where students are placed into homogeneous groups for a myriad of reasons. Purposeful grouping in an instructional purpose is within a class, in and among the students that are in that class. That's a part of a scaffolding strategy. That's part of a differentiated instruction strategy. That's part of UDL. So I don't want to confuse the idea that we're creating schedules that are tracked versus what instruction looks like in a classroom that provides purposeful grouping and work around differentiated instruction. So I just wanted to be clarifying on that. Because I think they're two separate things.
So I believe that our teachers already use those techniques. And so I guess I'm feeling not very confident in hearing us say we're going to remove the kind of higher level grouping. We already have this higher level grouping of honors versus not honors. And then inside of that, we already do UDL and we already do purposeful grouping. So now, if we remove the top level, that means I worry there will be a bigger burden on the teachers to try to span a gamut that'll be even bigger, because you won't have a homogeneous grouping within a class. So again,
you'll also open access for all students in an equitable way at a time when they're able to do that, rather than at a time before they're in. And there's so much research around tracking students and the disadvantages it puts students at when it's done so early in their career that we don't have any reason to be sorting students based upon their sixth grade, way they present in sixth grade. So I just want to distinguish between tracking, which is sorting students at grade 6 into a track of math that's accelerated for some and not for others, and the ability to do purposeful grouping, which is the term that you used, which is a scaffolding strategy that takes place within a classroom that provides everybody that ultimate high reaching for the highest quality instruction within a class. So I just wanted to clarify the difference on that one.
And I appreciate that. And I guess I should have started by saying I agree with the delay in giving a very strong foundation of math in the middle school. I do believe that, but I still stick with my guns around the fact that I haven't seen the MCAS data and the analysis of the data to support why we think that change, regardless of what happens in 9th grade. So I think we should disaggregate the two things. There's what we're going to do in middle school, and there's what we're going to do in high school. And I haven't seen data be presented to us that show that we think that the change in the middle school will result in an increase in our MCAS scores in 10th grade. I would like to see that but as we go on with these presentations.
That's a fair question. That's a very fair question. I understand what you're asking for. So, and I see Dr. Flaherty, the MCAS guru of the district, with her hand up. So, oh, you're on mute, Dot. Dot, you're on mute.
The MCAS presentations the last 2 years has really been focused more towards publicly when we present to you, looking at recovery from COVID. But behind the scenes of what happens at the school committee meeting, we have all worked and know the MCAS data inside and out as far as item analysis and which standards we're at the state average, the few that we're above the state average on, and the ones that we're significantly below. And we can look at that to say these are 7th grade standards, 8th grade standards, or they're not getting these standards because we're focusing on the Algebra 1, and we can more than easily put together a presentation for you.
That would be fabulous.
Thank you, Ms. Bisnick. Ms. Quayle, you're next. I'm going to call on myself, and then I will reach to Dr. Silva. Oh, Andre, I see Dr. Morgan also. Did you want to weigh in on what Dr. Flaherty just mentioned?
A little broader, but as you select, I can wait my turn.
Okay, we'll go with Ms. Coelho. I'll ask a quick question. We'll go with Dr. Silva and then Dr. Morgan. I'm just going to keep it in order as it shows on my screen.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, can I ask who was on the committee that is recommending this change, other than a few of the middle school teachers like Ms. Oliver had just mentioned? Maybe some of the high school teachers, were students involved, like maybe student advisory committee, math club students, the kids that are more geared around their math education?
Yep. So we came with this proposal working with my administrative team, my curriculum directors specifically. They've done a real deep dive into this work, and that's where the proposal came from. I've presented this to my teachers, and at this point, I've gotten it out to quite a number of teachers at this point, as far as small group and a larger setting to the whole freshman academy groupings of teachers. As far as a committee, we have not done that yet. That's coming as we move forward, and we're looking into the school visits and a few other pieces of this that we'd still like to pull together.
Okay. Are you done, Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Okay. I think my question is more of an ask for more information in a future presentation. I think I want to understand more about how Freshman Academy is envisioned. I took away from the slides that there is a feeling that the designation of whether a class is AP, CP, honors, is something that would be reserved for grades 10 through 12. But I have a similar question to the one that Ms. Bisnick was presenting about how purposeful groupings would be created as well. I'm always skeptical about our Panther Pride schedule in the 84-minute blocks and how we can provide opportunities for student choice in their class selection and scheduling in terms of music, arts, physical education, and some of the wellness and culinary offerings that we offer at our school. I do fear that somehow by making some decisions about how the freshman academy gets structured may limit some students' abilities to also have student choice, and that term that I like to throw around a lot this year is joy in education. I'm living it with 2 high schoolers right now, and being told what class you have to take is not always the most joyful experience for students, and to be denied a class because it didn't fit their schedule is also kind of a buzzkill for students. Who, if you could bring to a future presentation a little bit more information about how this would affect student placement on academies or into the different groupings and their course options, I would really appreciate more information on that.
We can certainly do that. Just in short, it actually increases flexibility with scheduling different classes.
Optimistic then. Dr. Silva and then Dr. Morgan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just have a question about, I'd like to know how you feel the high school is prepared with enough math and science teachers. Do we have enough math and science teachers at the high school to address the gap that we have? I'd like to just hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, the way we're currently composed, I think we are adequately staffed with both science and math. And this is not about, to me, the instruction of our teachers. It's about the structure of how we're set up and giving all the students access to that high level curriculum. That's the core of what we're trying to do here. And so, I mean, in short, yes, the way we are structured now, we do have adequate staffing in both departments.
So if a dedicated math teacher were to take an extended leave, would you have enough staff to address the needs? Is there redundancy to address the needs for math at the high school?
So you're saying if a teacher went out on leave, would I have the ability to replace that teacher? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, I think in order for there to be enough coverage for math, there needs to be some redundancy, right? And I'm speaking to this because I know of situation where this has happened in the past, where a math teacher, a substitute math teacher was put to take over class at the high school. And it just, it may not have been the ideal situation, but I just like to know that there is enough redundancy at the high school that if a teacher were to take an extended leave, that we're not depriving the kids or certain classes to have a less than adequate education in that particular subject.
There's always a level that we can absorb, but there is a tipping point at, I mean, I don't think that I'm saying anything that we wouldn't conclude on our own, but there definitely is a tipping point at us, if can you absorb 2, 3, 4, it depends on the subject, but we can always absorb some of those unforeseen issues that arise during a school year for sure.
Thank you. Let's go now, Dr. Morgan, then Ms. Robinson.
Hey, greetings to each of you. At the risk of opening up more questions, I feel like I should chime in from an opportunity, access, and equity perspective. Just to highlight a couple of things, or a few things rather, and then maybe to give some greater clarity on a few questions that I've heard. Tracking is the practice of separating students into different classes based on their academic abilities, which I think we already know, but here's some things that may be new information to some of us. And initially it took the form of multi-subject grouping following teachers' recommendations. But now most schools, or a lot of schools, not most, according to research, allow students to choose different levels in individual subjects. And any student, regardless of test scores or grades, can opt into an honors or AP class. Now, the system seems great at first. Students can choose the rigor of the classes they take based on their interests, and teachers can tailor their instruction to their class's abilities. However, about 80 years ago, researchers began to argue that this system perpetuated inequities and denied the most vulnerable students an equal education. And in a track system, higher tracks are disproportionately composed of higher income students with access to better opportunities, and it gives them a sizable advantage. And so in contrast, lower tracks are disproportionately composed of low-income students. And I've heard comments about UDL a little earlier. UDL principles are great, but they don't all close achievement gaps. And that's what I've heard this committee talk about over the course of the last couple of years, how we wanted to close achievement gaps with all of our students. UDL is not enough, unfortunately. And so, as we talk about tracking, the other thing to consider is that there's a lack of diversity in track classes, and it's pretty harmful in and of itself. Diversity's impact on learning, it's really hard to measure only through metrics like MCAS scores. But I was reading an interesting article from the Century Foundation around equitable classrooms or diverse classrooms, and really equity and diversity have two different definitions. But the core of this report was that unleveling, if you will, which is the term that we've used, it promotes creativity, it promotes motivation, it creates deeper learning, it creates critical thinking, and it promotes problem-solving skills. Now, these are benefits that apply to every student, not just subgroups or groups of students. And students from different backgrounds have very vastly different perspectives. They have different ideas, they have different outlooks. And so learning about these can help them become more complete and more rigorous people. And as the American Psychological Association has said repeatedly in its reports, all students learn most from those who have very different life experiences. Detracking doesn't mean taking away higher tracks and forcing all students in a slower paced curriculum. It really means pushing all students to a higher standard. There was a study, and I keep referring to the research because there's quite a bit of research out there around unleveling and its advantages to closing achievement gaps amongst all students. But there was a paper published at the University of Colorado, Boulder, And the author, called for this universal acceleration, which I thought was a great term. And what he was really talking about was all students get to experience homogeneous, fast-paced classes. And the students who fall behind, get the advantage of receiving interventions early to make sure that they stay on track. And so, there's a separate meta-analysis that was conducted by the University of Penn that covers 40 years of research. And their results yielded that detracking had some really positive impacts on low ability student achievement and on closing student achievement gaps. But yet they also had some positive impacts on average and high ability student achievement as well. And so therefore, they encourage detracking. I recognize that this is a concerning topic for many people. But I think as we continue to have the conversations and really begin to dig deep, where we should be looking is how do we begin bridging the gaps so that, all of our students are performing close and parallel with one another, and we really are closing achievement gaps rather than widening them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Morgan. I'm going to call on Ms. Robinson, then Ms. Visnick, and then I have another question myself.
Thank you. All right, so I just have a little word problem actually for math. Okay, so if a ninth grader got an A in an algebra class, in their class, and an A in biology, what would those A's look like numerically for their GPA?
It would depend on what level that was as far as CP or honors.
Okay, so I guess I'm asking because, do you know what I mean? It's just that I think that's going to be hard to determine in terms, so if the A in algebra is that, do those classes count? Do the algebra class freshman year, does that end up counting as a 4.0? Because that's the standard, right? And then it goes up to 4.6 if it's an honors class, but that would no longer be the case.
It
And
would
then
be,
I guess like let's put the A in biology. Let's put that at honors. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it would be really hard to figure that out.
so a CP class is on a 4-point scale and an honors class on a 5-point scale.
Right. So are all the classes going to be all the algebra classes in ninth grade? Are they going to be considered CP or honors?
Neither. Well, I shouldn't say neither. The coding of it, really what it comes down to is as long as you're coding those or calculating those as the same, everybody's coming out of it with the same opportunity, and that's the goal here. So wherever that lands is, it doesn't put one person at an advantage over another. And so when I mentioned before to Ms. Coelho's question about a committee of teachers, the naming of the course and where it factors in GPA wise, that's where my committee of teachers would be working with administration to find the right landing spot.
Okay, and also just so I'm guessing that if this change took place, there would be all the classes would end up being co-taught so that everybody had an equitable spread throughout no?
No. I mean, the breakdown would be the way it's composed right now. The freshman academy, each team has a section of co-taught for each subject. So English, math, history, and science. So there's one per subject per team for all 4 teams. That would remain the same. That wouldn't change. And so that's something where not only obligated to do, where we would want to do to continue to offer supports for our students that are prescribed co-taught classes.
Okay, yeah, I definitely think that's something I'd like to discuss further, but thank you.
Of course, yeah.
Ms. Visnick?
Thank you, Ms. Abel. My question really is for Dr. Morgan. Am I allowed to? All right, I pose it. I'm not allowed to address people other than you, right? So I'll do my best. Thank you, Dr. Morgan, for your presentation, for what you said. I guess my question that jumps in my brain based on what you said, I'm all for pushing all students to perform at a higher level. I guess I'm wondering why we're picking 10th grade to be the point at which we will begin to offer pathways versus 9th grade. And again, is there any data that says, and your hand is still up, by the way, on Zoom, is there any data that says, oh, it makes the most amount of sense to do this, here versus a year later? Right? Yeah, that's my question. Why does it make sense to say we can start to offer the different classes and, honors in the AP track versus the CP track in 10th grade versus starting that differentiation in 9th grade?
Dr. Flaherty's hand.
Lorinda, I think you raised a good point, and I think that as we continue through, remember, this is the introduction of many more conversations to come, and this move for 9th grade isn't for 2 more years. But if we're not doing if we're keeping heterogeneous classes through 8th grade, if we then start tracking right in grade 9, some of our students don't have the belief that they can do an honors class or be an honors student. And so in order to build that capacity with them at a high school level to succeed at a honors or an advanced level course in grade 9, because everybody's there, then they can see themselves as a honors student moving forward. We have some students that would never try an honors course. So this is one argument that we're trying to do in order to build that capacity within all students that may not have the support network at home or within their life, or they haven't had a lot of academic success, to see that with support, they can reach the same high level as other students. If we go back and look at what Mark had shown in those 2 slides earlier in his presentation, the 2 students, one that went through the CP, started CP, one that went right into honors, and the student in CP actually scored better on MCAS, but she never saw herself in that honors track to start with until teachers at the high school encouraged her to do that.
And I think to add to Dr. Flaherty's comments, I didn't realize I had my mute on a little earlier. In 10th grade, you have a little more of a maturity spurt, if you will. Even when a low-income student can take an honors class, I have found that younger students likely feel, i.e. 9th grade, likely feel isolated from their peers and won't take the class. And racial dynamics really worsen when this divide occurs. Racially speaking, when you look at, and I'm just choosing 2 subgroups, if you will, Black and Latinx students who take honors classes, are oftentimes the only non-white, non-Asian people in their class. There is some research that says that formerly low-track students, of color, carry into higher level classes, a double burden of justifying both their own capability and the capability of their race. So you got a different type of maturity level, which is certainly necessary, when you're in an unleveling, kind of format, if you will. I think the second piece of that is, I think I heard mentioned a little earlier that Mr. Thomas and Ms. Oliver had 2 variations, just in terms of student choice, versus family choice. The reality with unleveling is that it involves many layers. So both of those responses were correct because you just can't level in any kind of way. It has to be, pretty carefully planned in order for it to have the impacts that is desired, by educators and the district and school committee members. And so, we're in that planning process, if you will, hopefully. And it does take some time to plan. As I go back to the racial demographics, if you will, why 10th grade versus 9th grade, many ninth graders would shun higher level classes because they're reluctant to give up their support peer networks that they develop, among their lower track peers. And so it requires the students in lower tracks be willing to abandon their peer groups. That takes some maturity.
So I guess just one other piece too, because one of the I always try to go back to the research. There is a lot of research, particularly in the area of mathematics. Whether you look at the National Council of Supervisors of Mathematics, and now I'm going to just give you a bunch of letters because I don't really know what they all mean, but the NCTM and all of the the different associations of mathematics instructors point to a foundational year of Algebra 1 in the first year of high school to set you on a track for success in higher level math, including calculus. And so thinking about, brain development and, the ability for abstract reasoning and a number of different things, there is also research that shows that, we need to address that foundational skill of algebra. And I think that that's what prompted the beginning of all of these discussions, but it really is founded in research. We didn't just make up, oh, I think I'll pick 10th grade because that sounds like a good number, right? There's a lot of research that says that, and even some of the research that has us building a freshman academy in the first place, that says that, you want to make sure that students acclimate into high school in the freshman academy way that we've done it. So there is a lot of research that supports that as well in terms of definitely it's not in 6th or 7th grade. And the other thing that I want to just remind everybody, this is a conversation that's going to go on. The decision we came purposefully 2.5 years prior to whenever we wanted to make any big implementations changes, and to kind of bring it to you so that you have some information to weigh on, particularly around the information about the freshman academy at the high school. So, it's the start of the conversation and discussion. What I love is that you've brought us a lot of questions and the requests for things that you want more information on. That helps us as we prepare to come back and share more with you. And so that's all. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Dr. Trocheck. And for those that have joined us, I do want to say we will circle back to the resident voice in just a moment. I do have 3 or 4 people that have been indicating their interest in either speaking or having me read something into the record for them. So we will get to that in just a moment. Ms. Bisnick, I was going to call on myself next. I see your hand after myself. And I really want to appreciate what Dr. Morgan had brought to the discussion, as well as Dr. Flaherty. I was having some sort of feelings about how this all affects our students from the social emotional perspective and gives them a sense of belonging when they aren't tracked before that 9th grade year, when they really are becoming more free agents in pursuing their educational interests. And it made me think a little bit about how we are thinking about even our elementary classrooms with groupings that occur at teacher table. Obviously, students come with all different levels of interest, all different levels of experience, and need differentiated learning. But I do, when we hear more about Freshman Academy and the visioning of how different academies will be established, I wonder if we could also bring some more information about the social emotional aspects, the sense of belonging, the peer support networks. Again, this isn't about my students, but from my perspective, having 9th and 10th graders, the classes that your friends are taking often influences the classes that you might select as a younger student, because you want to be part of a group, a part of a peer network of support. But with maturity and self-identification and just sort of that growth mindset that occurs once you get into high school and start choosing your classes, may make some students break away from some of those peers in ways. But I also definitely want to hear more about how, with the support of our educators, we can group students so that they have opportunities to meet other students, get a different set of perspectives, and really benefit and grow as a person, to sort of break away from the cliques that maybe have formed through sports or extracurricular or just some scheduling, the way that works out. So again, thank you. Ms. Bisnick, quickly, and then I really do want to be respectful of the residents who have stayed with us this long, and we do have some additional agenda items if we can leave on this one, Ms. Bisnick.
Okay, I have an additional ask, which is that to see some more schedule, like examples of how a student who was maybe one of our best, right, maybe going to get the presidential award for MCAS. I took however many AP classes and got 5s, 4s, and 5s, how that student can go through, especially when we untrack all of the topics, all of the subject matters, right? If that could be something that we see, would that student have to double up then on other topics, right? If I want to take AP English and AP a push, etc., right? And I want to end my high school career with a good handful of AP classes. Is that going to be possible once we unlevel all of the subjects? And if so, does that really put me in a scheduling conundrum where I experience no joy? I have not much room for the class formerly known as the history of rock, for instance. Thank you.
Okay, so lots of asks, and we look forward to future conversations. I'm now going to shift us back to our agenda. Item 5 is an open forum for resident voice input into agenda-related items or non-agenda-related items. I do have a couple of letters that the chair received in advance. I also have seen a request on the chat for at least one, maybe two people that wanted to address the body. Again, this is up to 3 minutes. You do need to state your name and address for the record, and it's an opportunity to address the body. We are not answering questions at this time. We will be taking notes. And with that, I'll respect the people that have been online. First, Patricia Doobie, 23 Nelson Ave. You can come off mute.
Yes, thank you. Patricia Doobie, 23 Nelson Avenue. So you understand where I'm coming from. I taught math and physics at Beverly High School from 1997 to 2013. Then I left Beverly High to go take a full-time position at North Shore Community College as a math professor, where I still work. So I had in my job the task of aligning high school curricula from many local schools, including Beverly, to our North Shore Community College math courses. So a student, say, who got an A in pre-calc at Beverly High School could place right into one of our math courses without a placement test. In the course of doing that, I discovered a school that is doing the Department of Ed's, it's at the end of the frameworks there, modified math curriculum. Revere High School has eliminated levels, and they are doing 80 minutes of math every day, freshman year and sophomore year, unleveled, for the purpose of improving their math scores and for equity. They were talking about putting an honors criteria in some of the groupings, but they're getting rid of that too. But they committed to 80 minutes of math year-round, freshman and sophomore year. Even just looking at maybe doing math every day in freshman year, that would need 25% more math teachers. So when you talk about Brookline, Cambridge, and Lexington, they all started with world history and English. Brookline was just moving into math, from my reading, this should be checked, in fall of 2024 for the first time. Lexington, I'm not sure either they just started doing it or they were still talking about it. And I just read something last summer about Cambridge is actually now going back to pushing some Algebra 1 back into 8th grade. So I don't know that a lot of schools have done this with math, but Revere has really bought in and really said, we're going to do something about our math scores and our equity issue in math. I think that was about, in Algebra 2 and pre-calculus are sequential. Both of my children doubled up their math while at Beverly High. We were on a semester block system then. They both finished AP Calculus in their junior years. They're both engineers now, so that their education served them well at the high school. And they have given me 5 grandchildren, all of whom are living in Beverly, and the oldest one started kindergarten this year. This is why I still have a vested interest in your schools, in case you're wondering about my motivation, because I'm perfectly happy doing what I have, and you have a great bunch of experts working for you now. But I'd love to be part of this conversation if you think it's appropriate, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for joining us for the conversation and for bringing those points forward. I don't know if this other person, okay. Charlotte McClear, I don't know if you wanted to address the committee or present your questions. I did see you had something in chat and we can capture that there.
Hi, Charlotte McAleer, 6 Warren Street. I just wanted to ask, it was kind of, I believe, in a slide in the presentation that you were not just removing the levels for math, but by 26, 27, I believe, year, that all subjects in the freshman year in 9th grade would no longer have an honors level. And I just wanted some clarity on that and wondering if that was the case or if I misunderstood that. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, we will get that answer back to you. Thank you so much for participating. I did receive a letter in advance and I see the sender Victoria Renwick. I see you're present. Yes. Thank you for sending your thoughts in advance. Would you like to present those on your own?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
And just address. I need to grab the address real quick.
Yes, I live at 7 Greenwood Ave.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, no, thank you for the school committee for all this. This has been really helpful. And I'm glad you want to hear from parents. So I just thought I would give a little color speaking from our own experience. I'm a parent of an 8th grader in the accelerated math program and can confidently say this has really been a bright spot in our son's academic life, especially for a child who began their middle school career in the height of COVID restrictions. I think the vote of confidence, we're hearing from other experts too. We saw this, the vote of confidence from Mr. Sotera in 6th grade was no doubt a catalyst for success in math and really other academics. And I really do wish that for other children as well. I have to say my son is not stressed in the slightest. In fact, he says this is the only part of school that slightly challenges him and he still barely has homework. So as parents, we would really welcome more rigor. And, I know he won't be impacted by this, but I do have 2 6th graders, and I am concerned that this is just kind of a drop in the bucket to address a bigger issue of lagging math. This was very helpful discussion. We learned a lot, and maybe tracking isn't the right path here, but I am just unclear what else is being done to help. As Lorinda and other presentations did point out, it is troubling that all our students are behind in math. Your own presentations say our current achievement for growth scores in mathematics show underperformance of all groups. So there was no specific disparity. So I think we have a bigger issue to address. And, I hope with this proposal, and I don't feel confident that this is really a commitment to equity and excellence. And I think they have to go hand in hand. So I don't want to just get rid of a program because it costs more money or makes us vulnerable to criticism. So I'm looking forward to definitely, hearing more, seeing more data as this progresses.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for adding to the conversation. And then the last letter, did I see this person join? Tom Barr, are you still with us? Okay, well, I received a letter on Sunday, February 11th from Tom Barr, 646 Hale Street. I will read it into the record on their behalf. It's addressed to the school committee, and Ms. Bisnick, you were in copy. Dear school committee, as a parent of a student at BMS, I watched the math pathway presentation made at the curriculum subcommittee meeting in December, which was shared with me by Ms. Visnick with interest. I found the proposal regarding changes to the accelerated math classes unconvincing, particularly in these areas. 1. The proposed solution seems fundamentally lazy and not student-centered. It is basically saying, quote, it's too hard for us to figure out who should be in the accelerated math, so we'll cancel it, end quote. If the problem is equity and access, improve the on-ramps into these classes rather than remove the classes. Number 2, the idea that removing accelerated math through grade 9 would not affect the advanced math classes offered in higher grades is false. Those classes would clearly have to be dumbed down in order to teach the concepts that were not learned in the earlier years. Number 3, the idea that the accelerated classes teach 3 years of math in 2 years misrepresents the concept of accelerated classes. If students come out of those classes with, quote, poor foundation in Algebra 1, end quote, is that really going to be improved by eliminating the accelerated classes? If there is data, preferably from Beverly, that students who do not take accelerated math perform better than those who do, let's see it. This presentation did not provide any. Public school systems have multiple priorities, but surely 2 of them should be providing classroom content that challenges all students, preparing students as well as possible for the competitive worlds they will be entering post-education. It's hard to see how scaling back accelerated math programs accomplishes either one. Tom Bear, 646 Hale Street. Just checking to see if there are any other residents that wish to address the committee. And Ms. Bergeron, did we have anyone send an email? I don't have access to that account.
No, we have nobody else.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for those that stuck with us. We have just a few other items on our agenda this evening. I may have neglected to mention we also have an executive session planned for the end of the meeting. That executive session is not an open meeting, and so we will be saying goodbye to BevCam towards the end of this agenda. I do want to give the school committee chair updates at this point. Our meetings for the rest of February include a negotiations subcommittee meeting on the 27th from 4 to 6. We have our regular finance and facilities meeting at 6:30 on the 28th, and a committee of the whole meeting at 7:30, also on the 28th. And then we have a planned negotiations session with our Beverly Teachers Association on the 29th. So 3 fun action-packed days for our committee members who are serving on those standing committees. That session is planned to be posted for a 3:30 start, 4 p.m. with our BTA. I would also like to ask you to check your calendars. One of the items that we have in our charter is a joint council meeting with our city council. And I've already begun to have some conversations with City Council President Julie Flowers about possible topics and dates for that joint council. At this point, one date that has been suggested is March 20th. It is a Wednesday evening. We do have CISL on March 13th and our regular school committee meeting, of course. We also have a meeting on March 27th. That would be finance and facilities. So if people could check their calendars on the 20th of March and just put a pencil mark in there, we will be trying to firm up that joint council meeting. And next, I am hoping that the school committee would entertain a motion that I'm making to waive our policy BDE/BDEA. This is our policy regarding the construction of our standing committees. And there are 3 reasons why I'd like to suspend the policy for the moment. And that would be for the appointment of resident representatives to our standing committee. Presently, that policy is under review. Our policy committee is taking a peek at it because we had enacted a couple of things. one, we use the word citizen, and we really want to focus on resident, and so we are looking for some language changes there. We also had indicated a restriction of a 2-year term plus another 2-year term extension, and we have people who are interested but would exceed that restriction. And then we also have some practices that aren't exactly as our policy states. Our policy says that these are non-voting members that participate in our standing committees. However, we do informally collect votes from both our student representatives that join us at the table and the resident representatives. And although the only binding votes would be the committee members on these standing committees, we would want to look at the language about how we say they're non-voting when in practice we actually do ask for people to indicate their support or not to the different items that these bodies discuss. So with I've made a motion to waive policy BDE, BDEA until such time as it is reviewed and brought back through this committee.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions?
Ms. Abel, I would like to say that that policy has come out of the policy subcommittee meeting, so you should see it soon.
Okay, we will look forward to seeing that on our agenda coming soon. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote on suspending the policy until such time as it's been re-reviewed. Mayor Cahill? Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza still absent. Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Visnick?
Yes.
And Ms. Abel, yes. So vote 6-0 with 1 absent. Okay. I'm just going to double check my phone real quick to make sure nothing changed. I have the pleasure of naming the following people to our standing committees. These are residents who have indicated an interest and provided some background as to why they would want to be a member of these standing committees. And taking a lot of notes tonight. For our CISL standing committee, we will enjoy the presence of Katie Kraft of 1 Emily Way. She'll be joining at our March 13th meeting. We will also be joined by Matthew Owen Weaver of 14 Herrick Street Extension at the Curriculum Instruction and Student Life. And Ryan Redmond of 55 Parramatta Road. I will send letters out welcoming them to the Curriculum Instruction and Student Life. And then for our finance and facilities, Patricia Spanks, and I'm missing the address right now, but lives in Beverly and has a high school student that is going to join us on finance and facility. I'll collect that address. And then Mr. Paul Manzo, you may remember him, former school committee member and a member of our community who has a graduate of Beverly Public Schools, has offered to step in until such time as we have a plethora of other resident representatives that want to join. And so we appreciate his continued support in serving on that standing committee. I think that's it for now. I, of course, will be sending letters of thanks to all of our resident and citizen representatives from the prior term. We definitely appreciate the perspectives that are brought to the table. And we heard some more tonight. Okay. Losing my agenda items. I think Ms. Visnick, you're up with the standing committee report for finance and facility. You had a couple of action items for us.
Yes, ma'am. Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities last met on January 24th. We had an update from Christina Leal of Food Services to tell us that we have a new point of sales system. It's more affordable and it allows some extra functionality such as uploading menus and we are now a CEP district, and this means all of the children in our district can be fed for free without any need to file an application of any type. We also had our director of special education talk to us about the out-of-district placements and specifically about the tuition increases. You know, in FNF, we're always looking at the money side of the ledger, especially as we go into budget building season. And we have a number, you are absolutely right, we have a number of things that came out of our FNF meeting. The first one is that the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends approval of the attached gift to schools from November of 2023, totaling $2,231.84. I would like to make that motion.
I will second that motion. Oh, sorry. Always
Will you
with
call the
gratitude.
roll?
Yeah, always with gratitude. I will call the roll. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
yes, okay. Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza still absent. Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Visnick,
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes, 601.
All right, our next recommendation is that the Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends the approval of the attached gifts to schools from December of 2023, totaling $12,494. That is my motion.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Any questions? Always with gratitude. Mayor Cahill. We're
Yes.
going to do the roll vote. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
okay. Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza absent. Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Visnick,
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes, 601.
All right, two more to go. The Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities recommends approval of the attached Beverly 2024 DESE grants totaling $51,531. That is my motion.
I will second that motion. Thank you. With gratitude. No questions. I'll call the roll. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza is absent. Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Visnick,
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes, 601.
All right, our last motion, the Standing Committee on Finance and Facility recommends the approval of the attached budget transfer number 708. That is my motion.
And I will second the motion. Are there any questions from Ms. Sherburne? Okay, we have a motion on the table for transfer 708. Mayor Cahill,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza is absent. Ms. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Silva,
Yes.
Ms. Visnick,
Yes.
Ms. Abel, yes, 601. Thank you so
All right,
much.
and our committee is due, as you just said, to next meet on February 28th at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you so much. And then this is a joint curriculum instruction meeting. I'm not going to report out what we've just covered tonight. And I actually did not create a little cheat sheet. I don't know if Dr. Flaherty, is there anything that we needed to bring forward about our last meeting? Our next meeting is 3/13/24 at 6:30. Not seeing anything.
No, we moved the minutes to the next meeting, so we'll approve those at our next meeting and have our student updates.
Okay.
They were invited, but because we switched the night, a lot of them had sports tonight, so that's why most of them weren't online.
Not a problem. I will do the report for negotiating subcommittee. We had a subcommittee meeting yesterday, the 12th of February. We also had a session with our BTA units A and C on February 5th. And as I mentioned, we next plan to meet as a standing committee in a remote fashion on the 27th, and then with the BTA on the 29th. And then policy review subcommittee. Any updates to report?
Yes, ma'am. We last met on January 30th and we reviewed a relatively large batch of related policy changes provided by the MASC. those changes are queued up and ready to come forward to the committee of the whole for a first reading at a meeting in our near future, I'm sure. And we discussed the best way to bring the proposed changes, the recommended changes forward to the committee of the whole. And what the policy committee decided in conjunction with the school administration is to bring forward a clean copy as proposed. The policies as proposed will come forward, and we will make available for those people who are really interested in how the sausage is made. They can go look at the track changes version. Those will be put online somewhere. I have not exactly ironed that out yet, exactly where, but we think that that will be easiest for the members of the committee who are not on policy. We think it'll be easiest for you to see a clean copy of the proposed policy that's being brought forward. And then, of course, if anybody wants to speak to what has changed, the chair of each subcommittee that brings forward a changed policy should be prepared to speak to that. We have no further meetings scheduled because we got through the batch. Thank you for everybody who stayed late that night. We got through the whole batch from MASC. So at this time, there is no further meetings scheduled for policy at this time.
Right. Thank you so much. And we'll resume the first and second readings on some of the policies that we had started and that we had sent back at maybe our next meeting, Committee of the Whole, on the 28th. We decided to keep them off of tonight's agenda since we knew we would have a lot to discuss. Next item, communications from school committee members. Were there any communications that school committee members wanted to bring to the table? Okay, seeing none. Next, the chair is going to move that we meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for purposes 7 and 3, and to not return to an open session. Purpose 7 is to review and approve the minutes from our executive session meeting of January 24th, 2024. And purpose 3 is to discuss strategy with respect to and in preparation for collective bargaining with the BTA. I had put an AFSCME unit because an open discussion will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. So the chair has made that motion and I am looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick. This requires a roll call vote based on the nature of it being an executive session, but also because we are all in a remote meeting platform. I'm going to call the roll. Mayor Cahill?
Yes.
Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza is still absent. Ms. Robinson?
Yes.
Dr. Silva?
Yes.
Ms. Visnick?
Yes.
And Ms. Abel? Yes. That passes 6-0, 1 absence. And the chair will restate that we are now moving to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A for purposes 7 and 3, and we will not be returning to open session. Purpose 7, review and approve minutes from our previous executive session on the 24th of January, and purpose 3, discuss strategy with respect to and in preparation for collective bargaining with the BTA and AFSCME units, because an open discussion may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position. At this time, we thank everyone who had joined us this evening. I know people have been falling off. I'm going to remove people from this meeting platform if you don't remove yourself in the next moment, and we have BevCam for, again, all the extra effort to get us broadcast and on the streaming network. Thank you, BevCam. Safe travels this evening.